Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalists Roundtable. We'll look at the week's top stories, including a state Supreme Court ruling in the dispute between the Maricopa County Recorder and the County Board of Supervisors. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. It's Friday, and that means it's time for the Journalists Roundtable. And joining us tonight, Howie Fisher of Capital Media Services, Cameron Sanchez from KJZZ Radio, and Dennis Welch of CBS 5 and 3 TV. Panel, good to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us. Howie, we're going to start with you. The Arizona Supreme Court decides but the court seemed to like Justin Heap.
Well, is it a question that they liked him or they were tired of the supervisors always coming up with excuses? I mean, this has been up and down the whole judicial system a couple of times in terms of what are the duties of the recorder, what are the duties of the Board of Supervisors, which actually runs the elections. How does Title 16, the election code, work? And it seemed to be that in prior rulings, the judges said, no, this is the recorder's job. And of course, the supervisors kept coming back saying, well, yes, but, yes, but, yes, but. And finally, I think the justices got fed up and said, what part of no do you not understand?
It reinstated the lower court ruling, which overturned the Court of Appeals decision, as Howie mentioned, has kind of climbed and come and gone. But finally, they just basically said, no, these are his. IT, I think, was a big sticking point here, correct?
It is, because they took some of his access and staff away, and he was saying he's entitled to that under the law. And it kind of came down to, when the law refers to a county recorder or officer in charge of elections, does the board really have the power to say, okay, well, for us, this refers to our elections director and not to this guy over here? But because Heap is an elected official, I mean, that does give him some power. You know, he, like the supervisors, was chosen by the people of this county, and so the court, you know, they give him some benefit here. But this supersedes the latest court ruling, which had kind of said, you know, especially this close to an election, we don't want to make these changes. But I guess the higher court was okay with that.
Yeah, they did. I mean, we got early voting going on right now, and the primary's coming up.
One of the interesting things was the timing of the whole thing, because they had apparently been undergoing like mediation and had some agreements coming out and had come to an agreement at some point. And then this ruling comes out and just kind of throws a grenade into everything in the middle of early voting. And remember, early voting started already a couple of weeks ago. We got Election Day coming up. The big question, I think, that people wonder now is, will this affect at all the upcoming primary election? Well, we're already in it, so
exactly.
I don't think it's good. You're going to see a big impact right now, but moving forward into the November election, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure now on Heap to perform well.
So so the idea is the Board of Supervisors, along with the previous county recorder, made all these changes prior to Justin Heap coming in. The idea is what? You can't make those changes. You can't make those changes so late in time. What?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. Number one is, was there, for lack of a better word, a conspiracy between Mr. Richer, who's a former county recorder, and the supervisors, because he was more moderate Republican, whatever you want to call it, than Mr. Heap. And I think the board was concerned, God, if we leave this guy with all the powers that Stephen Richer had, Lord knows what damage he can do. And so I think that was a lot of it, that they said, we'll see how we can, you know, basically hamstrung him. The judges don't like that kind of thing. They say, look, you know, even though you're the supervisors, what they have is the purse strings. They can say, we can give you so much money for this. We're going to let you buy this equipment. But that doesn't, as Cameron points out, overrule the fact that he is an elected official in his own right, and the laws in Title 16, the election code, are fairly clear. These are the duties of the chief election officer of the state, not of the supervisors who happen to have an election director.
Yeah, Heap said this was a, quote, monumental victory for election integrity. The board said, we're disappointed.
I mean, I think it's a monumental victory for him. I'm assuming they're not going to make too many crazy changes this late in the game, at least for the primary. I would expect to see some changes maybe in Maricopa County going into the general election. But as things stand, because it's so late in the process, because today was the last day to request a mail-in ballot, I think that he probably isn't going to do too much too differently.
You mentioned the fact that there was an agreement, an understanding, they reached it a day before the court came out with this, and the mediation was prescribed by the court. What is it? Just a fooling around?
Yeah, and after this, I think Justin Heap couldn't run fast enough to say let's forget about that mediation and an agreement, because as you guys were talking about, he was already declaring this to be a monumental victory for election integrity. Now, whether it is or it's not, it's up to the eye of the beholder. But I think it's just the timing of the whole thing has really had me scratching my head. It was like, why would the courts pick this time to issue this ruling right now?
Well, all I can guess, and since I don't know that the Chief Justice is going to call me back and say, here's our thinking, Howie, I believe that they were fed up. They figured, okay, so we'll go through mediation, and somebody will say, well, yes, but I want to change this and I want to change that. They wanted to put it to bed. We're already, as Cameron pointed out, as Dennis noted, we're way into the election season. They said, we're putting it to bed for now. You want to talk later? We'll talk later.
Okay.
Remember, it's like what happened to the Purcell principle is don't mess with elections.
Well,
That's
yeah,
too
but
late in
the
the
Purcell
game.
principle has to do a lot with things like changing voting locations or changing registration procedures. I think the Purcell principle, to the extent it gives with administration, I think the courts are more willing to look the other way.
So in reference to what you talked about earlier, what changes? What's different?
I think the main difference for him is unfettered access to IT stuff and all of that information. So I think for your average voter who's trotting to the polls, hopefully nothing.
Does that mean that we're not going to see anyone from the recorder staff going into an office and taking out a scanner?
We've already seen that, come to think of it.
Yeah, are we not going to see any more of that, or what?
I guess not. I mean, but also I think we've done some reporting. There's a lot of ways that are prescribed that how you handle machines. You just can't go in and take something away and move it into a room, into a different building for 40 minutes and bring it back, and that's what we saw. I mean, these are important, important pieces of equipment, and there are lots of rules and procedures on how you deal with them. So, no, I don't think you'll be seeing that anymore.
Will we seeing any more letters from the recorder to the Board of Supervisors threatening criminal action should the early ballot boxes, if he's not approving them like he's now thinks he should be approving them? I mean, he's threatening criminal action here.
I think at this point, I think even he recognized, look, take your victory. You got most of what you wanted. No, they didn't give you absolute control over everything from alpha to omega, but you got what you wanted. Pick your fights. We'll come back and discuss it before the general election.
All right, Cameron, the Department of Justice sent warning letters out, including to Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, threatening again to prosecute election officials. Why?
If and when they find non-citizens on voter rolls, which indicates that is a massive problem, which we have no evidence of. And this is kind of one thing in a string of things that the DOJ has been doing. They also this week announced that they're sending election monitors to 6 different states, which includes Arizona, includes Maricopa County specifically, and a few others. And Harmeet Dillon, who's the Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Civil Rights under the DOJ.
Yes.
Thank you, Howie.
It all goes on her business card.
Well, she basically said that the monitor thing is, totally normal. We do this all the time. And it's true that they've had election monitors in the past, although she, again, indicated in that announcement that, we're sending them to places where there have been suspicious things, where things may have gone wrong, sort of laying the seeds of doubt in election security.
So here we go again, knowingly counting ballots of non-citizens, knowingly keeping non-citizens on voter rolls. The letter says, don't you do that.
Well, that's interesting because Arizona hasn't done that. There's no evidence of that. The prosecuting agency in this would be the Attorney General's office. I gave them a quick call to see what was happening with that. And they keep records that go back 15 years. And there are no evidence of examples of any prosecutions, let alone convictions of a non-citizen casting a vote. Now, the 15-year thing going back is important and significant because that covers this current Democratic administration. It also covers 2 Republicans who held that office before Chris Mays. And these are Republicans that very much would have loved the opportunity to prosecute cases of non-citizens casting votes illegally. We're talking about Tom Horn, talking about Mark Brnovich in the past.
And the other thing to remember is that Arizona, unlike most other states, we have a proof of citizenship requirement for 99 and 44 and 100%, if you will, of the people who are registered to vote. Now, there is that group of what they call federal-only voters, because federal law allows, and the Election Assistance Commission, to the extent it has been blown up already, prepares a form that says you avow that you are a citizen, and you can vote in the presidential races, and you can vote in the congressional and Senate races. But in terms of everyone else, with a few exceptions of people who had pre-1992 driver licenses, if you've got an Arizona driver's license, you've already proven you're a citizen.
Response from Fontes on this?
I think pointing out basically what Howie just said, which is this letter, this warning or threat went out to, I think, everybody. But he said, hey, actually here in Arizona, we have really strict laws compared to all the other states. You have to provide documented proof of identity and citizenship when you register to vote. And if you vote in person, you have to show ID at the polls. And he said, so don't waste your time writing a letter. Maybe just send us some more resources if you want to help facilitate the process that we've been doing.
And I also think Fontes is really questioning whether or not the Department of Justice knows what it's doing. He pointed out a couple of things with me in my conversations with him. One of them was, okay, you're threatening me with criminal charges, then why is this letter coming from the civil division? If you're really serious about this, how come it's not coming from the criminal division on this? And he also, again, he points out, again, like Howie and Cameron have pointed out, Arizona's got some of the strictest, laws on the books, voter approved, by the way, that you have to prove citizenship to vote in state and local elections. And Fontes is like, what are you doing here?
Well, and last point on this, the secretary, he's calling it a political stunt, a political action. He's got a point.
Well, he's got a point. Now, that is not going to convince a lot of Republicans. I mean, I've got John Gillette, who keeps sending me information on how there are multiple people all registered under the same registration number. So these must be illegal immigrants who are voting here. He may be right. I mean, I've looked at some of the data until my eyes start clouding over. But the fact is that all the talk, this goes back to, we were sitting around this table in 2020 about the illegals who somehow kept Donald Trump from becoming governor. In 2022, the illegals who kept Carrie Lake from president, Carrie Lake becoming governor, or in 2024 about her Senate. It's never been proven, and it's gone to federal courts and state courts.
Has John Gillette gone to law enforcement with this?
He says he has taken this to various groups, and he's working mainly with the federal government, and he's trying to get the Department of Justice to come in here, because once they see it, they will be so amazed.
And at some point, folks like that who really do believe that this kind of stuff is happening, is there ever going to be any proof to dissuade them of that opinion? Or is any new piece of information just points to a bigger conspiracy?
I just think that if you are Republican, lean right, far right, whatever the case may be, and you have any evidence of this kind of activity going on, you would be the first to take it to law enforcement. And if you were a judge or any county attorney, attorney general, anyone, you would be the first to say, we got them. Got them. See, we got everything.
I also want to say this too. Like, we know that like most non-citizens that are here illegally, what's the risk for them? Why are they going to pop up and put themselves in potential jeopardy of being caught by casting an illegal ballot?
Don't you understand?
Particularly when everybody, with this, a lot of Republicans are looking for that kind of behavior.
Exactly.
But you don't understand. The whole theory is they're doing that because they want to keep Democrats in office, because the Democrats will let them stay. You have to subscribe to the theories.
All right, we'll let you marinate in those theories over there, Howie. Attorney General looks like she settled this ESA lawsuit regarding voucher documentation. Was this a win, lose, draw for ESAs?
I guess you could call it a very minor win. I'd lean more towards a draw, though. I mean, this was Chris Mays being herself and saying, I'm going to put a stop to these ESA purchases for non-educational materials. And she filed this lawsuit, I want to say about 2 years ago, and basically said she is going to enforce that. Now, a bunch of people, the state, ADE, and got involved, and the settlement essentially says, okay, now when people are using their ESA vouchers, they have to basically check this waiver that says, I'm doing this for educational reasons, which is essentially nothing except for maybe adding on like accusations of lying and perjury when you're taking that person to court, if and when they're buying weird stuff.
And reimbursement is still subject to further investigation by the Attorney General. So you got that in there, but...
Well, I also kind of wonder, like, you've got a big initiative it looks like it's going to be going to the ballot. That's going to put some serious guardrails if it passes on this ESA school voucher program. I wondered how much of that factored into the decision, like, why don't we just let this go and let's take our chances in November with the voters, the same voters who also rejected ESA, universal ESAs, I think back in 2018.
Well, that's exactly the point. When I talked to folks at the Attorney General's office, and actually it was Mays who told the Department of Ed to enforce these rules, and the Goldwater Institute sued her to go ahead and say, you can't. And their feeling was, look, tell you what, we will get a little something, i.e. this checklist, and then we can declare victory. Goldwater said, fine, because you're not having the people jump through hoops for every tiny little thing. But I think they also talked about the fact that there's going to be a measure on the ballot, assuming there's not more litigation on it, but there'll be a measure on the ballot, and that has some much stricter guidelines and money for enforcement for the Department of Ed to actually do better checks.
I'm just not really impressed with this whole little waiver thing and this adding on to the terms and conditions, because if you're using ESAs, you're supposed to be doing it for educational purposes, and if you're going to do weird stuff with it, you're going to do weird stuff with it, and it's not a problem to sign off and say, no, I would never.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that makes sense to me. Dennis, let's...
I was going to say, except we've seen a lot of examples where people are using this ESA money to do weird stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know why, buying lingerie is for educational purposes. I'll leave that up to everybody else to think about that.
I'll explain to you after the show.
All right, I appreciate it.
Yeah, why don't you two, find a separate place and you guys discuss that. Dennis, sticking with you, holy smokes, Democrats in Congressional District 1, Marlene Glahn Woods and Amish Shah in particular, they're going at it.
The most entertaining thing race right now this week, and there's a reason people call this the silly season, and we are like full in it on now. Democratic primary, very heated, crowded primary up in CD1 that's been left open because David Schweikert, of course, is leaving to go to run for governor, so that seat is wide open. So what happened this week is that somehow Amish Shah's cat has gotten dragged in to this race, and he's got a black cat.
Okay.
It's named Hillary.
Interesting.
He tells me it was named after Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State and former First Lady, and that somebody, some PAC had taken out money to purchase these flyers that are hitting mail pieces that are hitting houses at this point, and they're trying to use the cat to entice people to vote against Amish Shah. It's really strange. It's really weird. I don't know why they're doing what they're doing, but they have these pictures of Amish and his cat, and the cat, I gotta say, objectively, is pretty cute.
Howie, you've both been around the block. You've been around more blocks than me. Have you ever seen a house cat used as political fodder?
Not that I can remember, although I seem to remember some farm animals in years past.
Okay, well, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, we'll stop that right there.
But look, what they're coming down to is they're trying to find something that sticks. You have Marlene Glahn Woods, formerly Marlene Glahn, a news anchor at Channel 3, digging out 30-year-old videotapes of her standing in front of a hospital saying, look, I am a news person. You have Amish Shah saying that the day that the Trump administration was trying to get rid of certain health care, I was in the hospital emergency room and he's dressed in his scrubs. Everybody's trying to get an image across. I don't know that anything is stuck at this point in terms of what do we really know about these people other than each of them says, look at me.
With that in mind, though, Marlene Glahn Woods had this recent event in which it was basically targeting Shah over reproductive rights, over, I guess, a bill regarding EMT responsibilities on the scene of accidents and things like this. I mean, it's throw everything against the wall.
She basically went through his entire legislative record and found things to attack him on, and I've been waiting for this particular attack ad to come out because I knew that the birth control thing was going to come up. I mean, she cited the fact that he broke with the Republican caucus on multiple occasions, which we know is true, and she rolled out Raquel Turan to confirm it. She said that he voted against this birth control bill. He's explained this in the past. He explained it again. He said, I voted for it because I was concerned about the effects of certain medications. I tried to amend the bill, then I abstained, la la la. I've been waiting for this attack ad to come out, but what it really suggests to me, the fact that they're going after each other and mostly her attacking him and him responding, is that they're worried about each other. Not in a nice way, but in terms of they're concerned about the threat that one another poses. They see each other as the front runners in this race, which has 4 Democrats going up, and Arlene Golan Woods has run before and she came in third to Shaw, but now she's really striking out. She's got the DCCC endorsement. She's got Fontes and May's endorsement. She thinks this is her year and she sees him as a threat, and that's what this is.
Yeah, I was going to add on to that. It's like the negative attacks, particularly from her. I'm not reading that as that there's a lot of confidence in that campaign that she's leading right now. And I think this is also another important situation here. You talk about the DCCC endorsing in this. They're setting themselves up for what could be yet another embarrassment. Why they got involved in a primary race, I do not know. What's the gain? What was to be gained from this of getting in? You know, they could have just held back and like just do what they normally always do, is just wait until this is over and support the primary winner.
And one other point in terms of, you know, what we're talking about here, to the extent that Amish is having to explain himself, that's fine for some long philosophical story. If you're explaining, you're losing. And that's really the key.
Well, I hear you, but that's a pretty sophisticated district. That's a district that seems to know Amish Shaw. Certainly he ran last time and did not win. Certainly knows Marlene Golan Woods. She ran last time and didn't even win the primary. I mean, these are people who I think are relatively sophisticated about these kinds of issues. Does something like this that Marlene Golan Woods did with this, you know, attacking reproductive rights, attacking EMT and not meeting with firefighter, although I think he did meet with firefighter, whatever the case may be, does that stick in that district?
I mean, they're throwing everything at the wall to see what does stick against him. I think, if anything, maybe the abortion stuff, if people don't listen to his explanation, because I agree with Howie about explaining. But if people care to dig into that, then yes, I think they would see his explanation. You know, he's talked about this multiple times over the years. It's not just a recent thing. And he made me go door knocking with him, so I can confirm that people do know him in this district. I mean, he's been in the state legislature for a long time, and he's run once before and secured the win. He was the nominee anyway. He didn't beat Schweikert, obviously. So I really don't know what to think about how this is going to play out.
There's one other factor. I think we've talked about the fact there is only one Democratic statewide race, and it happens to be for the school superintendent. And so what will Democratic turnout look like? I mean, it may, in this district, with enough heat and everything else and enough money, make a difference. But if you've got low Democratic turnout, because Democrats are saying, why am I even bothering filling out my ballot? You know, a couple of hundred votes either way on this are going to make a difference.
Yeah, you're talking primary, obviously, there. All right, Charles Barkley, Jerry Colangelo, Jim Nance, the NFL commissioner, the Bidwell family, the Giants head coach, Brian Urlacher, Hall of Famer. These guys, they're going with Feely and CD1 for Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, I know it makes for headlines. Those are well-known names, but you kind of like, you know, you hit up and you know, the people you know. And, you know, Feely had a career as a place kicker in the NFL. He's in the kind of sports media now. He's going to be rubbing elbows and know people like that. So we shouldn't be surprised that we're going to see some names on there that pop up that we know very well. I mean, some of them are, you know, are in the media, but I don't think they're held up to the same kinds of standards. If we saw our friend Howie Fisher donating to Jay Feely or any other candidate, I don't think they're going to be held to that kind of standard.
Does momentum in this, is this Feely still to lose on the Republican side?
Oh, I think the Trump endorsement starts it, and he's up on the air and spending a lot of money. Chaplik is busy explaining. Again, we're back to this issue. He's explaining his votes. He's explaining, I've been a leader on these things. Yeah, okay, give me something to hang on to if you want to vote for me, because of the fact that all I see is Jay Feely, and he's out there, and he's a place kicker, you know, for, you know, maybe half a quarter somewhere at some point in the NFL.
You didn't see the ad hitting him for being a tax and spender? Like, you know, I wasn't aware that, like, you know, he was taxing and spending when he was kicking field goals.
Yeah, that's again, Feely's to lose here?
I think so. I said I wasn't sure what was going to happen with Golan Woods and Shaw. I would be absolutely floored if Feely manages to lose this primary race. We're going to talk about it forever if that happens. These names, I actually don't know any of them, but but Wayne coached me, and I mean, it just shows like he's influential, and the fact that he's an athlete, I think it adds to his name ID, which is helpful in situations like this. And these are people who have money, and money is helpful in situations like this. So the endorsement is one thing, but if they're really putting money into his campaign, that just goes a long way.
Speaking of endorsements, we'll go out on this one, Dennis. Turning Point endorsement scorecard seems to have raised a little bit of a ruckus among the right and the farther right.
And there's Quang Nguyen. He's a state lawmaker. He happens to be a Vietnamese immigrant. He came to this country. He's like 5 or 6 years old. His country, his family fled Saigon when it was being overrun at that point. He's been a lawmaker, a very conservative lawmaker for a number of years. TPUSA gave out their scorecards, and they're not endorsing him this time around. They didn't like the score. He didn't like the score that he received from them, and so he gets into it with Tyler Boyer, the leader of TPUSA, the political arm over there. They go back and forth on Twitter, and at some point, Tyler Boyer asks him, "Do you even speak English?"
Yeah. Do you even speak? Howie, what? Huh?
You mean like, didn't we have a governor who asked once, does the Pope speak English or something? Going back to Evan Meekum. I know it's before your time. You're too young for that. But of all the brain dead, stupid, offensive things to say, no matter what you think of Quang, when he's very conservative, like 100% rating from the NRA and things like that, why would you go ahead and let yourself get, particularly in writing? This isn't even in person.
Right.
Don't do that.
Then you had another lawmaker step in and try to defend his record, another Republican lawmaker, Nick Cupper, and then
they went after
him.
him.
They went after it, and he says, like, don't vote for Nick. Tyler says, don't vote for Nick in future elections.
We got a little bit of time left here. What do you think?
All of that, and I would say this kind of makes me curious about the future of Turning Point USA, because Tyler Boyer is kind of filling part of the void that Charlie Kirk left behind when he was murdered. And I think the organization has changed and their influence has changed. It really devolved quickly and nastily, and there were other Twitter fights that expanded from that. Him going after Nick Cupper and turning on him and saying, well, we're not endorsing you now.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, about Turning Point's influence and whether lawmakers are going to try less hard to secure the support of Turning Point if this is how it's going to be.
All right, we got to stop it right there. Panel, good to have you all here. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend. I like to think that at Arizona Horizon, we are unique in the way that we